The podcast you're about to listen to may contain objectionable language, adult and/or immature content, mentions of Jesus Christ, and unironic readings of holy Christian scriptures. If any of this is likely to offend you in a manner that you find less than enjoyable, maybe don't listen.
Hi, I'm Pastor Bob Schaefer.
And I'm Pastor Eric Damon. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to A Comedians with Pastors Talking Bible Short Take.
That's right, this is a weekly thing this season.
Sure is. We're putting out some slightly irreverent, maybe funny, and maybe thought-provoking Bible commentary every other week. And we're still discussing the gospel text for the upcoming Sunday in the Revised Common Lectionary. Still doing it with comedians.
But every other week we drop the introductory banter with featured comedians and we dive right into scripture with our resident comic theologians.
I'm Eric Williams.
And I'm Abby Evans.
And we're not the pastors.
So our individual backgrounds play a big role in how we hear and respond to literally everything, but especially the things like faith and the Bible that matter deeply to us. So Eric and I are both pastors in a tradition that confesses the Bible to be, and I quote, the inspired word of God and the authoritative source and norm of our proclamation of Jesus Christ. Fancy way of saying that we try hard to remember that the Bible points us to Jesus, but not the other way around. And we approach the scriptures with great respect, and we view them as the ruler against which all things are measured.
Us, not so much.
But you've been respectful, you've been insightful, and more importantly, you've been fun to have on. So thanks for agreeing to be regular contributors this season.
Thank you. What are we talking about this week?
Well, I will tell you, we are talking about the second Sunday of Easter, which is April 27th. And this is the Sunday where we get a reading that is very familiar, but maybe is there's more to it than you think. This is from the Gospel of John, chapter 20. And in this gospel, we find the unprecedented events of the day of resurrection continue as the risen Jesus appears to his fearful disciples. A week later, after Thomas worships Jesus, Jesus pronounces that the blessings of the resurrection are also for those who, and I quote here, have not seen and yet believe. So here is our Bible text. When it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." When he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven them. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that, through believing, you may have life in his name.
Okay, so there's a lot here, but first things first, I'm going to have to flag that Thomas is called the twin.
Oh, yeah.
Like how is there a singular twin? Like
So
one of the 12, there should be twins. That's how twins work.
So if you're talking about disciples of Jesus and one of their nicknames is the twin.
It's because he looks like Jesus?
He's probably either looks like Jesus or is very close to Jesus. There is something between Jesus and Thomas that people are recognizing how close and similar they are.
Okay. And this isn't, I don't think like a theology thing. I'm just saying they should be the twins. Like I just...
So wait, we are saying that that there's a possibility that Jesus and Thomas are kind of Bobbsy twins?
That's the way I have been taught to read this, is that if someone in the inner 12 is called the twin, who's probably the other part of the twin? It's probably Jesus. And
I've just always assumed that he had a twin someplace wandering around Galilee. Thomas, where are you? No, this is a whole different take on that.
And I mean, that's so imagine, I mean, because Thomas is called Doubting Thomas because of this one moment. And it becomes the preacher's job to give some apology for Thomas here, because I mean, he's also the one who makes this great statement, "My Lord and my God." But imagine that someone that you are so close with that your closest friends call you twins has just died in a not only violent but very public way, and all of them are now telling you he's back. That's a hard one to buy. You feel kind of singled out and picked on.
Yeah, especially like, guys, you're telling me he's back. I'm the one called the twin, right?
I think I would know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Thomas, and it's like, we don't know why he wasn't there either. Is he off getting groceries? He's so grief-stricken that he can't be around the group, and the way he is working through his grief is he's just going off and walking the streets by himself. I mean, we don't know why he's not there. We just know he's not there. But I mean, people punk each other, right? I mean, and I totally get the idea that Thomas might be wary of these jerks, just pulling a fast one on him. I don't think he's wrong for being suspicious.
I'm gonna look, as someone who has watched a lot of procedurals, typically when someone shows up saying that they are the person who has already died, they're a con man. So I get where the twin is coming from on this. Also, I'm just saying, like, I understand the historical context, but in that opening sentence there, I feel like, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear. It should say of the citizens.
Yeah, let's take that one up.
You have to unpack through all of John's gospel. So the fourth gospel, the gospel that's attributed to John's writing,
you just made a face that told me there's some anti-Semitic tropes in it.
The language of the Jews in it has been adopted to be anti-Semitic tropes.
Okay.
That is not the way it was originally written.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because, of course, also, in the story, Jesus is a Jew, and all of the 12 men that we see in this story, they're all Jews. They're afraid of the Jews? They're afraid of themselves.
They're like, it's a ghost of a Jew!
And so traditionally, the way that's explained is that we're not talking about the Jews as in the Hebrew people. You're talking about the Jewish authorities, the temple authorities.
The oligarchs, the power people. And then history...
As I watch the rise of the nationalistic church in the U.S., I am inclined to see it less as the authority, as a branch of the Jewish church, in the same ways that you will find, well, Bob and I, who are within church circles, have very specific definitions for different types of Christian denominations. There are, if we were to be preaching a different message out into the world, when folks that are not in the church talk about Christians nowadays, they are often referring to a very specific.
He just made quote
branch.
marks around quick Christians. I just want the audience to know.
I made quotes around Christians because they're referring to a very specific branch of Christians that the majority of the mainline church would consider to be heretical.
I'm nodding.
But it is what is accepted by non-church folks as Christians. And to me, I read John's use of the Jews as what most Jewish people at the time would not have considered to be an actual faithful following of the God of Abraham.
That is a very nice unpacking, which makes a lot of sense. And the context that John himself is Jewish, I think, is relevant for this whole thing. Because again, as I've said and will repeat, Bible ignorant right here. My hand is up. The audience can't see it, but
that is the reality that we deal with too. Is that I don't think that you are any more ignorant than most of the people who are going to hear this message on a Sunday morning, right? But it's the reality, right? Yeah. I mean, Eric and I try really hard, but biblical illiteracy is a real thing in the church. And these words have what seems like a very plain sense reading, which sounds very offensive. And if you just drop them out there carelessly, I was uncomfortable reading those because they don't fit and sit well. They need
sound like
unpacking.
Something Steve Bannon would be way too comfortable saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and historically, it has, not just taken with malice, but because of biblical illiteracy, these have been used by folks who think they're doing it in good faith to be anti-Semitic.
And it's kindle for anti-Semitism, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you hit on exactly one of the tricky points in this. And I think one of the hard things as a pastor is to say there are lots of things in this passage that I want to preach on, and I hate to have to devote my time to explaining this particular thing. But if I don't explain this particular thing, it's going to be the thing that really dominates and misconstrues what I want to say.
And we have colleagues. It's not a decision I make. I read it as the NRSV translates it every Sunday. But we have colleagues who, for that exact reason, will translate it differently and read it in a way that means I don't have to spend 5 minutes of my sermon unpacking it.
I don't have to create a podcast with comedians just to break this down.
It's because reading that, it's similar to every time I am introduced for a comedy set as the funniest pastor you'll ever. And it's like, well, I now have to do the first 3 minutes of my set about that I'm a pastor.
And also that's rude to Ellen Lundy.
Yeah.
The very funny Pastor Ellen Lundy.
Yeah. Well, the funniest pastor. But it is. If you drop that and if you read Fear of the Jews and you don't at least mention that somebody, even if they're not going direct, full anti-Semitic, somebody is hearing that the Jews were the enemies. Mm-hmm. And in their head, they might make a distinction between modern Jews and biblical Jews, but you made a connection that's going to be problematic if you follow it where it goes.
Like if John Wayne is reading this out loud, it's definitely anti-Semitic. Yeah. And let me tell you, Pilgrim, and the doors of the house where the disciples were met were locked for fear of the Jews.
Yeah. That's the wrong way to read that.
That was a great job.
mean, I don't know how good the voice was, but I got the racism
You got
down.
you got the essence of racism.
Sometimes you just kind of need to sit and bask in a thing, right?
I will say there's a lot in this passage, but I really do appreciate the end where they have the Ron Howard narration epilogue. There's a whole bunch of stuff that Jesus also did that's not written down, but like, yeah, we're gonna focus on this.
You gotta love when like the author breaks the fourth wall. And you know you were writing a book this whole time. I will say one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is something I'm guilty of doing, is like there are so many things that I could go into, but I'm not going to. And that's kind of what he was like. It's like Jesus had many other signs that we could go into, but I don't know. This is like Bible times, and paper's really hard to come by, so I'm not going to put it in there.
Papyrus?
It's an.
I was just waiting for the hard to come by joke. But,
I was letting it slide this week, Eric.
We're starting to rub off on you.
Oh no! Don't do that.
actually, one of my favorite old Howie Mandel jokes, where he pulls out a bird cage. He goes, "Look what I got! These are hard to come by." And he sets it down, and then he pulls it out. And he goes, "Literally, I tried."
That's extra funny because he's a germaphobe.
You know, way back when we started this podcast, you would say that you invited the comedians because you liked their dick jokes, and now we really have kind of come full circle.
Like
there are 12 of us.
Oh dear.
We're just coming one by one.
I think that's what's called a Cummer's Dozen.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough.
All right. So we've done that enough, and back into the cheeky manner in which Jesus shows up and says, "Here you go. Stick your finger in there." and what do you think of this here? I got my.
Want to see a magic trick? I can make your finger disappear.
But I mean, this is the thing about the Jesus in the resurrection that we have here is he really is a fascinating dude at this point. That in one aspect, he has a physical body that you can put your hand in the hole in his side. It's there, and you can touch that, you can feel that. But also, he's walking into rooms with the doors shut and locked and seeming like he can just kind of miraculously come and go. He has a body. He's not a ghost. But he also is different in his resurrected body than we are in our pre-resurrected bodies. He's really, another story that I think we'll get later on. He's asking them to make some fish. And,
Oh yeah.
And he eats fish with them, has some breakfast, because this is something that a ghost doesn't do. It's not the ghost of Jesus. This is Jesus in a real body that bears the marks. I was going to say, I don't remember which of the church fathers had written this, but had described the scars as the trophies of Jesus' victory, that he bears in his body the trophies of his victory over death. And that he would by no means ever give those trophies up, that they are of such great value that he will bear them forever.
Now seems like the appropriate or perhaps inappropriate time to mention that me and my good buddy Drew Mulkins of the comedy troupe Sad Boys based out of Cleveland have long discussed writing Feaster Sunday, a Jesus zombie musical.
I will go see that.
I don't know if it would be surf rock or not.
No, there was in Minneapolis there was a big mural on the side of one church that had Jesus, stretching his arms out over the children. Did you see this, Eric, when you were there? Over the children of the world, and he had this kind of look in his eyes and this crazed sort of expression that we always joked about. This is the zombie Jesus. I don't believe it exists anymore, but
That's a good decision by someone.
There are probably pictures if you need cover art for your album that I will look for that for you.
Thank you.
That is a Schaefer family tradition.
That will be a great album cover that will give me nightmares.
It will. It will, in the best possible way.
Where in Minnesota?
This was right across I-35, kind of over by the Metrodome.
In Minneapolis?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
There was Bobby and Steve's Auto World gas station, and you could see it from there.
I may have passed it at some point in a family vacation.
I feel like you would have remembered Zombie Jesus if you had seen him.
I may have blocked it out. You do that with trauma sometimes.
I think to get us back on something like a track, the distinction of them as trophies Jesus won't give up is important. That he would have made the because if it's something that you just bear with you into death, we've now turned all of our resurrected bodies into the world from Beetlejuice, where you have the way you died stamped upon you for all of eternity. And I don't want to consider the afterlife to actually be the world from Beetlejuice, but if it is, Jesus is choosing to keep this form as a mark of the victory over the devil, in a cheeky way to taunt the devil. Ha ha ha! You thought you got me.
I'd totally do that. Like, I'm down with it.
Yeah, I mean that is we've talked about taking the things where you are vulnerable and that they can become your source of power, and that those wounds that the ones who inflicted them on Jesus thought they were simply doing something to him. No, these become the things that he chose that in the moment, and he continues to choose to bear those marks for all of eternity. Because that is their importance. That is the sign of his victory. Yeah, that's a powerful thing.
So it's very much the Tyrion Lannister quote that's like, take who you are and wear it as your shield of armor. Which leads me to the point, how come Peter Dinklage has never played Jesus Christ? You look me in the eyes and tell me that would not hit.
Well, when you get the Zombie Jesus musical,
Yes.
I think you know who to cast.
Okay.
He's
But
got a great voice.
Yes, he's fantastic. He makes sense. But who's going to play Thomas?
I don't know my Game of Thrones
Peter
well enough
Dinklage.
to. The twin. I think that might be the most brilliant thing that has ever been said on this pod.
There you go. Now, usually I try and wrap up something. This is the second Sunday of Easter, also known as the Feast of the Associate Pastor. Is the Sunday that I have not preached since my internship. I take the Sunday after Easter off every single year, and so may my pulpit supply pastor come up with something deeply edifying for our people.
I think it's admirable the way you are sitting here doing sermon prep for your pulpit supply pastor. If they want to know what you are thinking about this, that here it is in all of its glory.
And it's not much. I'm trying to think because you apologizing for Thomas there, unpacking the Jews statement, but all of these none of that is actually preaching a message to somebody. That's just unpacking things about
What about this, though? I mean, so here you've got, again, kind of fourth wall breaking, that it's almost like Jesus turns and looks right at the camera when he says, have you believed because you have not seen me? Turn and look. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. He is talking directly to the audience there.
Okay, that's how you took that. I took that as Jesus, once again, as we've discussed on this podcast previously, being a little snarky.
Is this all just an advertisement for the Book of Mormon? If you want to see what powers Jesus has.
Well, I feel like on some level he's like, Thomas, you're not blessed right now. Twin.
it's would be uncomfortable for the people in our pews, but that I always take that as a scribal edition of John's. That John is the one that's putting that fourth wall break in Jesus's mouth.
I like the idea that the man just said, yeah, I'm going to say it. You guys aren't going to understand why I'm turning and looking over here and saying this, but... So here's one last question. This Sunday is Holy Fools Sunday. It is sometimes customary for pastors who are not going to have an associate pastor to preach on their behalf to stand up and tell jokes. And I think I said last season how I had tried this once very early in my career and never again.
I had to do Holy Hilarity Sunday for the 1 year that I
Wait, you weren't kidding.
No, Holy Hilarity Sunday.
I thought that was
No, this is like totally a thing.
The audience cannot see, but like my brain is exploding right now. I 100% thought that was you being like, yeah, Holy Hilarity. I'm like, haha, no, this is a real thing.
It is an Eastern Orthodox tradition, and I don't know if the tradition began with pastors wanting to take the day off, or if it. But the story that has developed is that the idea is that Jesus had the last laugh on the devil.
Which I love the idea of Jesus emerging from the grave, and the first thing he does is he laughs out loud. I think that is brilliant and beautiful. Unlike my sermon where I attempted to tell jokes for 15 minutes.
Ooh, 15 minutes is a long time for a first-timer.
And I thought I had all of the good Ole and Lena Lutheran jokes up there in the Midwest. And, the worst part was that I had two churches, and it bombed at the first church. And I knew that I wasn't going to have any time to work that material. This is what we got. Round 2 coming up here. The 15-minute drive from the one church to the other was kind of grim. I'm like,
Bob, I am learning things about you. I did not know that you could relate to our specific pain so well.
There's a reason that I don't do stand-up.
I was going to say, it hurts especially when you write the joke specifically for an audience and it still bombs.
I know the exact pain and dread you felt on that 15-minute drive.
It was terrible.
Yes.
But that's why I wonder, Eric, I mean, you feel like you and the best Lutheran comic around, Ellen Lundy, would be uniquely suited to do this well.
There's a very specific type of joke that has to be told to work in a sermon, because when you go to a comedy show, you know that jokes are coming at me.
Yes.
And so even when it's told in a story
or you go to a bar
fashion,
and you figure it out really quick.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you can story type things can become funny. It has to be like out of a Bazooka Joe comic strip to work in the sermon. And I know the ones that got laughs were those ones that I took out of like a joke book and stuck in there. And anything where I thought I was actually being funny,
nope,
they missed it entirely. And because it has to be a sermon too.
Yep.
So you don't just tell jokes. So they're confusing
the
funny parts with the sermon parts.
I both was not funny and I didn't tell a sermon, so complete and utter fail.
It is a ridiculously difficult task to be funny
in something that is inherently not funny.
But if you do, I mean, if you have here's the setup, here's the punchline, bada bang boom, they laugh politely.
We know that. We know that laugh.
But actually being funny.
That Midwest, it would be rude if we didn't laugh.
But we're secretly pitying you. Not that I know about that.
Says the guy from Minnesota.
And unfortunately for me, this is where we're going to have to leave things because we're out of time.
Well, good luck to all the Pulpit Supply and associate pastors out there.
We are praying for you. So speaking of praying for, you guys have stuff coming up. What should we be praying about?
This is April 13th, right? Something like that.
April 27th, so the week before that.
Oh, okay, never mind then. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at It's Abby E. We didn't pray for what I was going to plug in. It failed, so bye.
You can follow me at Comical Edubs on Instagram. I will have shows coming up through the summer, and I should have a show May 1st at the Alburo in Regent Square. Check my social media to confirm that.
So thank you for everybody out there who is still listening. We are sorry if you were offended.
You're still listening. We're not sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Nuts to you. But before you go off and shake the dust off your feet from us, do us a favor. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Share our podcast with people. Tell them about it. We want them to listen.
Make them listen. We need the listeners.
We'll leave that part up to you. And we'll be back with some featured comics that we get to know and see how they approach the gospel text next week.
Until then, may the Holy Spirit do a thing in your life.